We've entered the Alderaan system.
Governor Tarkin, I should have expected to find you holding Vader's leash. I recognized your foul stench when I was brought on board.
Charming to the last.
So, it's been a few weeks since Rogue One: A Star Wars Story was released, so I think it's time to start talking about a few spoilerific aspects about it. If you want to know my thoughts on the film, spoilerific or spoiler-free or whatever you want to do, you can listen to my thoughts on the Movie Mania podcast, but today I wanted to pose a question about one of the standout effects of the film, namely the digital recreation of Grand Moff Tarkin and to a lesser extent Princess Leia. For those of you who don't know, in the original 1977 Star Wars, Grand Moff Tarkin was one of the main villains of the film, who at points even acted as a superior to Darth Vader. He was played by Peter Cushing, who was in his mid-60s when he played the iconic and memorable role, and he passed away in 1994. With Rogue One taking place in such close proximity to Episode 4, it would make sense for Grand Moff Tarkin to make an appearance, but with both films seamlessly linking into each other and in some ways could be seen as an ideal double feature, the filmmakers elected to digitally recreate Peter Cushing on screen through motion capture technology, with actor Guy Henry giving the character a presence on set, but with industrial light and magic overlaying a digital Peter Cushing on top of him. Make no mistake, Rogue One is not the first movie to attempt something like this, far from it. Ever since Andy Serkis and Weta Digital pioneered the motion capture technology with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, there have been multiple attempts to create realistic, emotive human characters on screen and make them full-fledged characters as opposed to digital stunt doubles such as was the case before. For example, in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films, they digitally recreated actors Tobey Maguire, Alfred Molina, Thomas Hayden Church and so on, and put their faces on digital bodies so they could convincingly emote during dangerous and outlandish action scenes. We also saw a de-aged Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator Salvation and Terminator Genisys, as well as a de-aged Jeff Bridges playing against his older self in Tron Legacy, which was a natural extension of this technology, all of which were done with the involvement of the actors in question. And in recent years, Disney has been at the forefront of this digital performance revolution, with them resizing actors like Chris Evans in the Captain America movies and putting Mark Ruffalo's face on the Hulk's body, as well as de-aging actors Michael Douglas and Robert Downey Jr. for vital flashback sequences, and even using a combination of makeup and digital effects to age up Hayley Atwell in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Despite these recent advances, Disney and Lucasfilm are not the first to bring the dead back to life for the sake of the narrative. In 2006, we had Superman Returns, which took Marlon Brando's iconic performance as Jor-El and recreated it 2 years after his death, and a similar approach saw Richard Burton's iconic narration coming out of a giant floating head on a stage during Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds 2006 tour, 22 years after Burton had passed away. But Peter Cushing's recreation is something else altogether. This is a fully fledged human supporting character being created from scratch, and is essentially taking Peter Cushing's image and, despite being deceased for 22 years, passing it off without commentary or narrative explanation. This isn't a hologram, this isn't someone on a screen, this is an actual key player in the movie. Whether or not the effect was convincing or well done is entirely down to the eyes of the beholder. Some people weren't impressed with the effect, and I've even seen the nickname Grand Moff Tintin being bandied about online. I personally thought the effect was incredibly well done, but I was always aware that this was a motion capture character, so it did kind of skew the way that I viewed it, though many younger viewers who had no idea who Peter Cushing was reportedly had no idea he was a digital creation, but that is anecdotal evidence, I must stress. But the main issue is whether or not this is actually respectful to the actors and respectful to the character. This is a completely different question. Now, Disney and Lucasfilm are entirely above board in using Cushing's likeness. While California has a law that grants individuals a right to their publicity for 70 years after their death, otherwise known as the California Celebrities' Rights Act from 1985, Peter Cushing died in the UK, meaning he was exempt from this. But Lucasfilm still got full permission from Cushing's estate, and they were very happy and moved by his portrayal in Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. But the fact of the matter is that Peter Cushing is Grand Moff Tarkin. In Episode 4, his voice, mannerisms, and interactions with the other actors informed that character and were down to Cushing as well as the direction he was given by George Lucas. But despite Tarkin looking like Tarkin in Rogue One, that isn't Cushing's performance on account of him, being dead. He has done nothing to inform that character. He didn't read the script. He didn't approve anything that Tarkin did. Peter Cushing has had no say on how he would be portrayed in Rogue One. I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing, that's just a fact. While Marlon Brando and Richard Burton were recreated, it's still their voice and their performances that were informed by their authorial decisions to an extent. And Paul Walker being digitally recreated in Furious 7 was done under very different circumstances, as he died halfway through that film's production, had signed on and agreed to how he'd be portrayed in that movie, and director James Wan had direct help from his family to digitally recreate him for certain scenes. In the case of Tarkin, people find this ground-up recreation to be a dishonest representation of an actor and a character in a movie, and while I don't entirely agree with that argument or hold that against the filmmakers, I'm not exactly going to tell people how they should feel about a topic like this. This topic also takes on an entirely new light after the death of Carrie Fisher recently, though obviously her digital recreation was made while she was alive, and it's a much, much smaller role than Tarkin's. After the tragic passing of Carrie Fisher, with filming having finished on episode 8 but reports coming out saying that she would have had an expanded role in episode 9, how do you deal with this? Do you CGI her like they did in Rogue One? Now that may seem disrespectful to some people, but others could argue that it would be more disrespectful, or at least equally disrespectful, to cast someone else in the role in order to see the character's role see a satisfying conclusion. This isn't on the same level as Michael Gambon taking over as Dumbledore in the Harry Potter series after the death of Richard Harris, because Carrie Fisher is Princess Leia and has been for several decades, so some people could consider a recasting to be equally, if not more, disrespectful. This is a different scenario to a digital Cushing as well, because before passing away, it's easy to assume that Carrie Fisher knew what was going to happen to her character in the next few saga films, so she could have had some input on the direction that General Leia would go. She did have that authorial input on her character in a way that Peter Cushing never could have done, but this is entirely new territory. Just to emphasise, I am not taking a side in this debate, rather I'm just throwing the topic out there because as technology advances and as franchises and nostalgia become more profitable for Hollywood, we're going to be seeing much more of this. One of these days, technology is probably going to get to a point where we could see a biopic and the main subject is an entirely digital and motion captured actor. That's where we're heading, like a Michael Jackson biopic where we get Michael Jackson CGI'd or motion captured. That's where we're heading, so it's important to ask these questions right now. But I know people who can come across as quite hypocritical about this topic because even they don't know where they stand on it. I personally know someone who thinks that it is disrespectful for Disney and Lucasfilm to profit from Rogue One by using Peter Cushing's likeness without his express permission, but he also bought a Grandpa Joe Funko Pop from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory despite actor Jack Albertson being dead for nearly 30 years. And this is different from, say, Audrey Hepburn being recreated to sell chocolate, which actually comes across as rather disrespectful considering that the reason for her slim physique was because she was starved close to death as a child during the Dutch famine in World War II, or Bruce Lee being used to promote alcohol in commercials despite the guy being staunchly against alcohol consumption. The main objective of these recreations is buy our products, whereas the recreation in Rogue One is more along the lines of here's Tarkin's role in this story that we want to tell, and also buy our products. The reason I disagree with the interpretation posited by many people online is because bringing a character back from the dead or taking the actor out of the creative process has been a staple of franchising for several decades. Keeping with Star Wars, actors' likenesses have been used in comic books, video games, novels, and more in order to expand the universe. Tarkin himself was the focus of a 2014 novel called Star Wars Tarkin, written by James Luceno, and Tarkin has also appeared in Star Wars Rebels. Peter Cushing never had a say in how his character was portrayed in that novel or in the TV series, but when you're dealing with a franchise as vast and as expansive as Star Wars, people are willing to accept different interpretations or different points of views when reading words on a page or seeing still images in a comic book or living through them as a playable avatar. Speaking as a Doctor Who fan, for years, despite many of the cast members from the original series passing away or growing older and being unable to play their original roles, that's not stopped me from appreciating dozens of comic books with their younger, original faces recreated through ink or their voice being written by a talented author in the page of a book. It allows a fandom and a community to continue appreciating a character who was previously lost to us, and it allows different writers and voices to tell stories with those characters. But those differences are, admittedly, slightly harder to appreciate or comprehend when a deceased actor's face is literally right there on the screen. Hello everybody, thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully it encourages some very spirited discussions in the comment section below. And thank you very much for watching my first properly edited video of 2017, well, my first edited video in quite a while, because last year, due to work and job related things, edited videos had to take a slight back seat, but hopefully that gets rectified in 2017. Now I just wanted to thank, of course, you guys for watching, but I also wanted to give a shout out to my patrons who help to keep the lights on here at Trilby Reviews and also make edited videos like this possible. I'd like to thank Anne, Zachary, Jerome, Winter, Connor, Annalie, George, Joe, Tibbyho, Reven0123, Lizzie, Ken Reels, Edward, Samuel, Kevin, Dean, and Paul. Thank you so much to my patrons who financially support the show, and also our patrons of the Film Brits podcast, which you can listen to on iTunes and also on SoundCloud. Those of you asking about the most anticipated list of 2017 and the best and worst film lists of 2016, those lists are going to be coming in the next couple of weeks, because I need to catch up with all the 2016 films that I missed. I need to have a much more comprehensive list before doing a top 10 for either the best or the worst. There's a lot of great films from last year, like I, Daniel Blake, that I missed, and there's also some terrible films from last year, like 9 Lives or Gods of Egypt, that I just couldn't see because I was working such long hours that it didn't really permit cinema visits. So there's a lot of stuff that I missed out on that I'm hoping to catch up on, so I have a much more comprehensive year's end list. So thank you so much for your patience for that, and hopefully I'll see you guys around for the rest of 2017. If you want to support the podcast and also these videos, then be sure to go to the Film Brits Patreon. There's links in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit that like button because it really helps me out, and please subscribe if you want to see more content. I'll see you guys next time.